The second I stepped into the elevator, I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't invited. I didn't even have the badge to get past security. I tailgate behind a delivery guy carrying 12 boxes of croissants. Her office was on the 15th floor. I had never been there before. She said it was boring, nothing to see, all glass and sad plants. But that night, while she was still at a quick drink with coworkers, her iPad pinged at home, lighting up with a notification from a shared calendar I'd forgotten we even had access to. Suite 1542, reservation confirmed. I don't know what made me go. Maybe it was the name I saw attached to the reservation. Or maybe it was the fact that I still had the parking app logged in from the time I picked her up once, months ago. But here I was, alone, in front of a sleek door with no window. A brass number, no peephole, and my own breathing sounding way too loud in a hallway that smelled like bleach and betrayal. I didn't knock. I took out my phone instead. My hand was already trembling before I tapped the camera icon. I told myself I wouldn't go in. I'd just hold the evidence. Just in case. Just so I wouldn't question myself later and gaslight myself into thinking I overreacted. The door wasn't locked. It opened with a click that felt louder than thunder. She didn't scream. She didn't even flinch. She was on the couch, wearing the green dress I told her once made her look like a stranger. Sitting too close to someone I recognized only from a Christmas party photo 2 years ago. A guy named Kellen, I think. He had braces back then. He doesn't now. They weren't kissing when I walked in. Not yet. But they were leaning in. The space between their mouths had more tension than anything I'd felt from her in months. I lifted the phone, thinking I was being smart. Strategic. She turned and saw me. Her expression melted instantly, from surprise, to horror, to panic, and then, to strategy. "Elle, what are you doing here? You're misunderstanding." Kellen stood up like I was his dad, catching him shoplifting bubblegum. She walked toward me barefoot. No shoes. Just that dress and a scent I didn't recognize. It was a joke. Just a friendly kiss. "You came at the wrong time." She reached for my wrist. I didn't pull back. I was frozen like a damn idiot. "Please drive me home," she whispered. "Let me explain. Please don't do this here." And the worst part? I did. I drove her home. Because I was still hoping, that there was some version of this night where I wasn't the punchline. But that hope died somewhere between the silence in the car and the voicemail I later found on our landline. A voicemail meant for him. We didn't speak the entire drive home. Not a single word. She didn't cry, didn't apologize, didn't explain. She just stared out the window like a passenger in someone else's life, occasionally glancing at her phone, which she kept flipping face down, like she was hiding a wound that hadn't bled yet. I drove like a man carrying a ghost. Her perfume still filled the air, but it wasn't the one she wore for me. It smelled expensive, like something you wear for someone who sees you in candlelight, not daylight. When we pulled into the driveway, she sat still, like she was waiting for me to say something first. I didn't. I just got out, walked up the steps, and unlocked the front door like my body was operating on habit alone. She followed me in, closed the door softly, and said, "Can we talk?" I said nothing. Instead, I walked straight to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stared at the fridge, specifically at the stupid little magnet that says, "Choose love every day." I bought it in a gift shop 3 years ago after our first big fight. The irony made my stomach churn. She stood behind me, shifting her weight like her bones didn't know how to hold her up anymore. "It wasn't what it looked like," she started. That sentence alone made my blood boil. I didn't even turn around. "So what was it?" I asked flatly. "A work exercise? A friendly lip warm-up? An unpaid audition for betrayal?" She sighed. Deep. Controlled. Like someone trying to keep a story straight. "We've been distant. I thought maybe you didn't love me like you used to." I finally turned around. "So you kissed Kellen because I didn't compliment your dinner last week." "I didn't kiss him," she said sharply. "We were just close. That was the moment you walked in. Nothing happened." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I never do. I just nodded like an idiot, because part of me, the sad, desperate part, still wanted to believe her. Still wanted the version of reality where I wasn't living with someone who could lie that effortlessly. Later that night, after she went to bed claiming a headache, I sat in the living room with the lights off. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't even sit still. I kept replaying the moment her eyes met mine in that hotel suite. There was no guilt in them. Just shock. The kind you see when a magician's trick goes wrong. I needed closure. Something concrete. So I plugged in the landline. Yeah, we still have one, and checked the voicemail. We barely use it. The only calls we get are from the pharmacy or election campaigns. But that night, there was one message. Time-stamped 6:42 p.m. I pressed play, and it was her voice. Whispering, laughing, saying his name. Kellen, I booked the suite. You were right. I needed something that feels real. I'll be wearing the green one. The one you said made me look like I belonged to you. I didn't even realize I was crying until my shirt collar started to dampen. That message wasn't meant for me. And suddenly, everything made sense. The lie, the silence, the dress, the look on her face when she saw me. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Fear that I'd heard what I wasn't supposed to. And I had. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. Instead, I lay next to her in the dark, both of us pretending to be asleep, our bodies rigid as strangers on a train. The house was so silent I could hear the kitchen clock ticking through 2 doors. My brain kept looping the voicemail, the way her voice changed when she said his name, the way she laughed in that soft tone she hadn't used with me in years. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in that green dress, her bare feet on the hotel carpet, Kellen leaning in. The image wasn't sharp anymore. It was burned into my eyelids like an afterimage from a camera flash. By dawn, I decided I wasn't going to ask her anything. I was going to watch, collect. I told myself it was for clarity, but really it was because I was scared of the answer. So when she woke up and mumbled about having to go in early to finish a report, I kissed her forehead like a ghost and let her leave. The moment the door clicked shut, I started moving. I went through her nightstand. Not because I'm proud of it, but because I had to. In the back, under a stack of old greeting cards and expired coupons, there was a second phone. Sleek, black, screen smudged but charged. Not locked. It lit up as soon as I touched it. No photos of us. No texts to her mother. Just a string of messages to a contact saved as Jay. But Jay wasn't her sister, Jane. The messages weren't family-friendly. They were coordinates. Times. Little codes like 15A, bring wine, or window seat, green. I scrolled for 10 minutes straight, my stomach tightening with every line, and then one message stopped me cold. Thursday night. Bring the papers. He'll never know. I dropped the phone like it burned me. Papers? What papers? For a second my mind went wild. Divorce, bank accounts, something darker? I didn't even know what to imagine. My hands were trembling so badly, I had to sit down on the edge of the bed and breathe through it. The dog, Tater, patted in quietly and rested his head on my knee like he was the only one who still trusted me. That afternoon, I did something completely out of character. I followed her. I parked across from the coffee shop where she said she was meeting a client. She wasn't with a client. She wasn't even with Kellen. She was with a woman I'd never seen before, handing over a thick manila envelope. They sat for 5 minutes, no coffee ordered, then split up like actors at the end of a rehearsal. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Either way, when she drove off, I stayed behind, staring at that empty table, and the envelope burned into my memory. My entire marriage had turned into a jigsaw puzzle dumped out on the floor, and every piece I picked up cut my fingers a little deeper. I went home and sat in the kitchen, waiting for her, but she never came back that night. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a single text from her. Don't wait up. Staying at a friend's. No name. No details. Just a digital shrug. And that's when something inside me snapped. Not in the violent movie way, but in the quiet way a rope finally frays after holding too much weight. I realized I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a witness. And witnesses eventually have to testify. I didn't know it yet, but the next day would bring me face to face with Kellen himself. And what he had to say would make the green dress look like a warm-up act for something much bigger. The thing about knowing you've been lied to is that it doesn't make you smarter. It just makes you quieter. It makes every sound suspicious, every sentence a code. I didn't shave that morning. Didn't eat. Just sat by the front window, listening for her car, even though I knew she wasn't coming home. She hadn't texted since 2:17 a.m. and still hadn't read any of my messages. I sent 3, none of them angry. Just, where are you? Are you okay? Can we talk? Around noon, I opened the front door, still in my wrinkled t-shirt from yesterday, and I saw him. Kellen, leaning against a black sedan across the street, like some smug side character in a bad soap opera. Except he didn't look smug. He looked worn. like someone who hadn't slept, who had too much to say and no plan for how to say it. I walked straight over. No yelling. No fists. I didn't even know what I wanted. Closure? Answers? A reason to throw up? He saw me coming and stood up slowly, holding both hands in front of him like I was a cop, and he was unarmed. I didn't expect you to find out this way, he said. You mean by catching my wife in a hotel suite with you? No, I mean, he stopped himself, rubbed his jaw. Elwood, right? I hated how calmly he said my name. Like he'd rehearsed it. Like he thought using it would make things easier. He motioned toward his car. Can we talk? Somewhere neutral? I should have said no. But I didn't. Because I needed something. Anything. That made sense. So I got into his car. My legs felt heavy, my throat dry, like I was stepping into some surreal alternate timeline where the man who helped ruin my marriage also became my chauffeur. He drove to a parking lot behind a bookstore. Empty. Quiet. Far enough that we wouldn't be seen. He turned off the engine and leaned back. Look, he said, I'm not going to insult you by saying nothing happened. We kissed. A few times. But it didn't go further. I laughed. Actually laughed. You expect me to believe that? He turned to face me, his eyes tired. She told me you two were separated. That hit harder than I expected. We sleep in the same bed. She said it was temporary. That you were roommates at this point. That you hadn't touched her in months. I swallowed. Hard. Because that part, unfortunately, was true. We hadn't been intimate in over 6 months. But I thought it was just stress. Work. Her migraines. Life. Kellen saw something change in my face and softened his tone. Look, I didn't come here to play the victim. I knew it was messy. I didn't know you were still in it like that. I leaned forward, voice low. She booked a hotel suite and called it a joke. She whispered your name on my voicemail. You think that's something two people do if they're confused? He didn't answer. I pushed further. What are the papers? His head snapped up. What papers? Thursday night. Bring the papers. That's what she texted. You're telling me you don't know? He stared at me like I'd just told him his house was on fire. No. I never got a text like that. I swear. But I could tell. He wasn't lying. He was surprised. He looked scared. Whatever those papers were, they weren't meant for him either. Now we were both being played. The ride back was dead silent. I got out without saying a word. I walked into my house like it wasn't mine anymore. Because now it wasn't just about cheating. Now it felt like something else entirely. Something deeper. And I had a feeling that whatever Junie was planning, it wasn't about love. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. But not because I was heartbroken. That had passed. What I felt now was colder, something closer to being hunted in your own house. I started noticing things. Small things, at first. Drawers that weren't closed the way I left them. A stack of mail that had been rearranged. The faint smell of her perfume in the garage, even though she said she hadn't used it in weeks. At 2:11 a.m., I opened our filing cabinet and pulled out the folder where we kept tax documents. We had a system. She color-coded everything with pastel tabs. Blue for medical, yellow for utilities, green for income. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because my name on a utility bill felt like the last proof I existed. But when I looked at the green tab for income, something was missing. My 1099 from last year gone. And my W-2 from the part-time consulting gig I picked up in January? Also gone. I dug deeper, flipping through folders like a madman. Not shredded. Not misfiled. Just gone. I didn't know what to do, so I called the bank the next morning. Told them I needed access to our joint records, just the recent ones. I expected a 5-minute conversation. Instead, the guy on the phone said something that made my vision tunnel. Sir, we sent your death certificate to the estate office 3 weeks ago. I can't give you any information without proof of ID and documentation reversing the declaration. I swear the floor moved under me. I asked him to repeat it. He did, slower. Your account was closed due to a certified death notice. I'm very sorry for your loss. I sat on the kitchen floor, phone still in my hand, while the dog sniffed at my knee like he didn't recognize me. A death certificate. For me. Filed without my knowledge. There was no question now. This wasn't just infidelity. This was orchestration. And Junie had filed something, under my name, somewhere, for someone. Maybe not to kill me literally, but to kill me on paper. By noon, I was parked outside the law office where Junie used to work before she pivoted into marketing. It wasn't the first time I'd been there, but it was the first time I'd walked in alone, unannounced, and told the receptionist I had an appointment with Mr. Calloway. There was no appointment. But when she saw the look on my face and heard the tremor in my voice, she didn't argue. Mr. Calloway remembered me, or pretended to. He was old school, navy pinstripe, fountain pen in the pocket, smells like expensive leather old school. He invited me in, gestured to a chair, and waited. I didn't even sit. I handed him the voicemail transcript, printed out and highlighted. Then I slid across a flash drive containing a screen recording of the texts from the second phone. "I think my wife is trying to erase me," I said. He read silently. "Watch the video." Then he finally looked up. "Does she know you have these?" "No." "Then don't tell her." That was all he said, but it was enough. By the time I left, I had 3 names, 2 document numbers, and a recommendation to contact a private investigator. He didn't say it outright, but the way he looked at me, he'd seen this before. Maybe not exactly this, but something close. When I got home, Junie was in the kitchen, like nothing had happened, wearing an apron, stirring something in a pan that smelled like garlic and dishonesty. "Hey, babe," she said brightly, like we were in a commercial. "I thought I'd surprise you with dinner." I stared at her, every fiber of my body screaming to ask her about the bank, the papers, the phone, the manila envelope. But instead I said, "Looks good," because I needed more time. She thought I was slow, weak, but I was about to become someone she didn't recognize. He called himself Arlo Mendez, wore cracked leather shoes, spoke like someone who knew people lied for a living, and chewed cinnamon gum like it was a nervous habit he'd turned into a performance. I met him in a booth at a diner 2 towns over, the kind with syrup bottles that stick to your fingers, and a waitress who called me honey before I even sat down. Arlo pulled out a yellow legal pad before I even said a word. "You're not crazy," he said flatly, as if that was the first thing every client wanted to hear. I gave him everything: the burner phone photos, the voicemail, the erased bank account, the law office visit. When I mentioned the name Kellen, he blinked twice and wrote it down in all caps. But when I mentioned the death certificate, he didn't blink at all, just scribbled faster. "You sure she hasn't taken out life insurance in your name?" he asked casually. The question made my chest tighten. "Not that I know of." "Well, that doesn't mean she hasn't. I'll find out." He handed me a burner phone of my own, preloaded with 1 contact. No GPS. No apps. "Use it only when necessary," he said. "If she's really erasing you, she's watching more than you think." On my way home, I noticed a black sedan idling 2 streets from the house. I parked around the corner and walked in from the alley like I used to do as a teenager sneaking back after curfew. The house was dark except for the living room lamp. She wasn't home yet. I took the chance to search again. Not for anything specific, just to find out what else I'd missed. Her desk drawer had been reorganized. Same folders, different order. I knew because I'd memorized the placement 2 nights ago, like someone studying a crime scene. But it was what I didn't find that chilled me. The wedding album. Gone. Not misplaced. Not tucked away. Just missing. The space where it had sat for 10 years was now filled with a decorative bowl of keys. I sat on the floor and stared at that empty shelf for what felt like hours. Not because I missed the album, but because it confirmed something I hadn't wanted to believe. She was erasing the evidence of me. That night, she came home humming. Humming. Like she'd just gotten back from a spa, not whatever parallel life she was living. She kissed me on the cheek. Her lips were cold. "Guess what?" she said as she toed off her heels. "We got approved for the refinance." I blinked. "What refinance?" She stopped. Just for a second. A flicker. Then the mask snapped back into place. "The house. The papers we signed last month. Don't you remember?" I didn't. Because there were no papers. Not that I'd signed. But I nodded. "Right. Of course. Long week." She smiled and disappeared into the bedroom. The next morning, Arlo called. "You ever go by the name Evan McKinley?" "No." "Why?" "You sure?" "Yes, I'm sure." "Why?" He exhaled slowly. "Because someone used that name to open a credit line in Nevada 2 months ago. Same birthday. Same social. Same photo." "What photo?" "The one from your DMV record." I didn't speak. I couldn't. "Elwood," he said, his voice lower now. "Whoever Junie's working with, they've already started building a second version of you." "What does that mean?" "It means someone else is about to start living your life, or dying with your name on paper." I stared out the window. It had started to rain. Just a drizzle, tapping against the glass like tiny, impatient fingers. And suddenly I remembered something. A slip of paper in Junie's wallet I saw 2 weeks ago. I only glimpsed it because it fell when she pulled out a receipt. It had a hotel name on it. A city, not in our state. I thought nothing of it. Thought it was from a past work trip. But now I wasn't sure if she'd ever planned to come back, or if she was simply waiting for the version of me that had already been quietly buried. The thing about paranoia is that once it turns out to be justified, it stops being paranoia. It becomes strategy. I wasn't scared anymore. I was studying her. Her routine, her voice, the way she shut doors just a little too gently when she came home late. Every smile she gave me felt practiced, like she was rehearsing for someone else. Someone who didn't know her eyes used to widen when she was lying. But I knew. And now I knew something else. She didn't want to disappear with Kellen. She didn't want to escape me. She wanted to keep everything. My name, my credit, my identity. She didn't want freedom. She wanted inheritance. Arlo called me again the next morning. He was tense. I could hear the strain in his throat even before he spoke. I've got something, but you're not going to like it. I already don't like anything. Fair. Listen, Junie's not working alone. There's a third party. We traced one of the business filings tied to Evan McKinley. It's a trust fund. Not hers. Not Kellen's. Belongs to a woman named Delia Rowe. Ring a bell? It did. Delia was Junie's mother's best friend. I met her once, years ago. Real estate investor. Wore sunglasses indoors. Claimed to be psychic. Gave me a weird hug at our wedding and said I had a very useful soul. I never thought about her again. Until now. Arlo continued. Delia is the trustee of a shell account that recently purchased a life insurance policy in the name of Evan McKinley. $2 million. No medical exam. Fast track approval. I felt my throat tighten. What's the trigger? Natural death. Or disappearance? There it was. The full picture, finally forming. She didn't want to kill me. She wanted me to vanish. To fade into paperwork. To sign something I didn't read. Or take a flight that never landed. Or maybe get accused of something I didn't do and quietly vanish into a story no one could confirm. And the worst part? It might have worked. If I hadn't taken that photo in the hallway. If she hadn't kissed him while the elevator doors were still closing. I hung up with Arlo and stood there, alone in the kitchen, staring at the stove. The pot roast she made last night was still in the fridge. It smelled like cloves and garlic and the end of a marriage. That night, she came home early. Hair perfect. Smile glowing. Guess what? She said, tossing her bag on the counter. I got us tickets. Tickets. To Montreal. A weekend away. You've been so stressed. I thought we needed a reset. Just us. I stared at her, my heart crawling up my throat. Montreal. She picked a city with no extradition agreement. With snow-covered streets and border policies she knew I didn't understand. She wasn't asking me on a trip. She was setting the final trap. I forced a smile. That sounds amazing. She beamed and leaned in to kiss my cheek. I knew you'd say yes. And that's when it hit me. She was convinced I still didn't know. She thought I was still playing the fool. And maybe I could use that. Because I wasn't just going to stop her. I was going to walk into her game, smiling, calm, holding her hand, and make her watch it all fall apart. I didn't sleep the night before the flight. She did. Slept like a child, curled on her side, breathing evenly under the comforter we picked out together 3 years ago on an anniversary trip I now suspect she resented. I lay next to her, eyes open, heart still, running the plan over in my mind. I had everything I needed. In the morning, she was radiant. Wore soft gray travel pants, a champagne sweater, and a scarf I'd never seen before, probably one he bought her. She hummed while brushing her teeth. Kissed my neck while we waited for the rideshare. Slipped her hand into mine at the airport like we were newlyweds. We passed through TSA without a word. I carried both passports in my jacket. Hers, and the one that still said Elwood Henry Talbot, still said I existed. I could have told her then. Could have said, I know everything. Could have thrown her betrayal in her face and watched the mask shatter. But I didn't want a scene. I wanted something cleaner. We sat at gate B23. She ordered sparkling water and a croissant. I excused myself and walked to the information desk. I showed the clerk the small blue folder Arlo helped me prepare. Inside were copies of the falsified filings, the fake credit line, the shell policy in Nevada, the secondary passport under Evan McKinley. Everything. The clerk blinked and asked me to wait. 10 minutes later, airport security arrived, flanked by 2 plainclothes officers. I didn't watch them take her. I sat on a bench by the restroom, head down, heart thudding like a bass drum in an empty concert hall. I heard her voice once, sharp, confused, rising, but not panicked. She hadn't figured it out yet. Not fully. By the time I returned to the gate, she was gone. The officer handed me back my passport and folder. "You'll be contacted," he said. "But you're clear." I nodded. And just like that, I had myself back. The next few weeks moved slowly. She was questioned, of course. Detained. Released on bail. Charged with conspiracy and document fraud. Kellen cooperated. Delia Road disappeared. Arlo said they'd probably find her in Panama or Portugal or hiding under a different name in a condo she bought with someone else's soul. But none of that mattered to me anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I wasn't even bitter. I was free. I rented a small cabin 3 hours north. Just me and Tater. No wedding albums, no scented candles, no text messages that vibrate like grenades in your pocket. The trees there are quiet. The lake is glass. Sometimes I still wonder why she did it. Why someone who had everything thought she needed more by becoming less. But I don't let it haunt me. Because I made it. I was the man who vanished. And then I became the man who came back. Not to her. To myself.